Some forms of disrespect should never be forgiven. Not because you should hold a grudge, not because you should become bitter, but because the moment you forgive certain behaviors without consequences, you teach people exactly how far they can go with you. Have you ever noticed how some people apologize and then do the exact same thing again? They cross a line. They see your reaction. They say they are sorry. You forgive them. And for a while, everything seems normal until they cross the line again. Only this time, they go a little further. Most people believe forgiveness always makes them the bigger person, but human behavior is more complicated than that. Because not everyone interprets forgiveness as kindness. Some people interpret it as permission, and that is where the real danger begins. There are forms of disrespect that come from anger, frustration, or a single moment of weakness. And then there are others, the kind that reveal something deeper, a pattern, a hidden belief about you, a quiet calculation of what you will tolerate. The strange thing about people is that they rarely begin with their worst behavior. They test the boundary first. A small humiliation disguised as a joke, a promise broken without explanation, a private weakness exposed to someone else, a moment when they deliberately make you feel small, just to see whether you will stay. And if nothing changes after that moment, they learn something, not about themselves, about you. I am the watcher, and here, in Shadow Insight, we look beyond what people say and observe what their behavior is really telling us. Today, we are going to examine 7 types of disrespect you should never forgive in the usual way. Because this is not really about revenge, it is not about becoming cold, and it is certainly not about carrying anger for the rest of your life. It is about understanding that forgiveness and access are not the same thing. You can release your anger and still close the door. You can understand someone and still decide that they no longer deserve a place in your life. But stay until the end, because the 7th form of disrespect reveals something most people understand far too late. The deepest disrespect is not always the loudest. Sometimes it comes from the person who knows exactly where you are vulnerable and chooses to use that knowledge anyway. And when you finally understand what that behavior really means, you may never look at forgiveness the same way again. If these observations help you see human behavior more clearly, subscribe to Shadow Insight. And as you listen, ask yourself one question. Which line have you been calling forgiveness, when deep down you knew it had already been crossed? The first type of disrespect you should never forgive is repeated humiliation. Not one careless joke, not one awkward comment, but the person who keeps making you the target. They embarrass you in front of others. They expose your weaknesses for a laugh. And when you finally react, they say, "Relax, I was only joking." Watch carefully. The joke is rarely the real issue. The real issue is that your discomfort does not make them stop. It makes them curious about how much more you will tolerate. The second type is disrespecting you in front of others. There's something revealing about a person who waits for an audience before attacking you, a partner who mocks you in front of friends, a colleague who undermines you during a meeting, a family member who speaks to you in a way they would never dare to in private. Why? Because public disrespect is often about position. They are not only hurting you, they are showing everyone else where they believe you stand. And then there is the third type, repeatedly breaking your boundaries after you have clearly expressed them. You told them what hurts you. You explained what you would not accept. They understood, and they did it again. At that point, the problem is no longer misunderstanding. It is a decision. Most people never realize that a boundary without consequences slowly becomes a suggestion. And once someone learns that your no eventually becomes fine, they stop listening to your words. They start studying your tolerance. That is when disrespect becomes dangerous. Not when someone crosses the line once, but when they begin to believe the line was never real. The fourth type of disrespect is betraying something you told them in confidence. You trusted them with something private, a fear, a weakness, a painful memory, and one day they used it against you. Maybe during an argument, maybe to embarrass you. Maybe they told someone else because your privacy mattered less than the attention they received from revealing it. This kind of betrayal is different because they did not discover your vulnerability. You gave it to them. Jung believed that people often hide parts of themselves they are afraid to confront. And sometimes, when a person feels powerless, threatened, or resentful, They look for power in the weaknesses of others. That is why the fifth type of disrespect is so revealing, using your insecurities against you deliberately. They know what makes you doubt yourself. They know what you are sensitive about. And when they want control, they go directly there. A partner mentions the one thing you hate about yourself. A friend compares you to someone they know makes you feel inadequate. A family member brings up an old failure at exactly the moment you begin to feel confident. Then they say, I was just being honest. But honesty is not the same as precision cruelty. Watch carefully. When someone knows exactly where the wound is and repeatedly chooses to press on it, the problem is no longer what they said. The problem is what they were willing to become in order to hurt you. And once someone has shown you that your vulnerability can become their weapon, trust can never return simply because they said, I'm sorry. The sixth type of disrespect is punishing you for standing up for yourself. The moment you say no, they change. They become cold. They withdraw affection. They stop speaking to you. Or they make you feel guilty for having a boundary at all. This is not disappointment. It is punishment. And punishment has a purpose: to teach you that protecting yourself will cost you something. So the next time they cross a line, you hesitate. You remember the silence, the tension, the emotional distance, and slowly you begin choosing peace over self-respect. But the seventh type is perhaps the most revealing of all: disrespecting you because they believe you will never leave. This is where the dynamic changes completely. Some people treat strangers with more consideration than the people who love them most. Why? Because strangers can walk away. But you have forgiven them before. You stayed after the insult, you accepted the apology, you gave them another chance. And somewhere along the way, your loyalty stopped inspiring gratitude and started creating certainty. Nietzsche understood that human relationships are often shaped by hidden struggles for power, and one of the most dangerous shifts happens when someone becomes certain that there will be no real consequence for losing your respect. That is the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes, people do not continue disrespecting you because they do not understand your pain. They continue because they understand something else. They believe your attachment to them is stronger than your willingness to protect yourself. And once someone becomes certain that you will stay no matter what they do, their behavior often reveals exactly how little your forgiveness was costing them. Now comes the uncomfortable question. Have you ever forgiven someone, not because they truly changed, but because you were afraid of what would happen if you stopped? Afraid of losing the relationship, afraid of being alone, afraid of conflict. Sometimes we call it forgiveness when what we are really doing is avoiding a painful decision. And people notice. Not always consciously, but with time they begin to understand which boundaries are real and which ones disappear after an apology. This does not mean their behavior is your fault. It means you still have power over what happens next. Because forgiveness does not require reconciliation. Understanding someone does not require trusting them again. And loving someone does not require giving them unlimited access to you. The real question is not whether you are capable of forgiving. Most people are. The real question is whether your forgiveness is helping someone grow, or teaching them that losing your respect has no consequences. Watch carefully. Sometimes the most important boundary is not the one you explain, it is the one you finally enforce. So, should you really never forgive these 7 types of disrespect? The answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. You can forgive the anger, you can release the resentment, you can stop caring what someone did to you, but forgiveness does not mean restoring their access to your life. And that is the distinction most people learn too late. The 7 forms of disrespect we explored all reveal the same hidden mechanism. The moment someone knowingly uses your trust, your vulnerability, or your attachment against you, the problem is no longer a mistake. It is a choice. That is the revelation. The deepest disrespect is not always the insult itself. It is the belief behind it. The belief that you will tolerate it, that you will forgive it, that no matter how far they go, you will still be there. Human nature always reveals itself eventually, and sometimes the strongest form of forgiveness is not giving someone another chance. It is letting go of the anger while refusing to return to the same pattern. If this episode made you recognize something you have experienced, tell me in the comments. Which type of disrespect do you believe changes a relationship forever? And if you want to keep looking beneath the surface of human behavior, subscribe to Shadow Insight. Because once you understand what people are really testing when they cross your boundaries, What happens when you finally stop proving that you will always stay?